Okay, last talk for today. We've got Ian Jackson. Unfortunately, we don't have his partner or person who was going to be doing it with him, so just Ian tonight.
Yeah, hello. I'm afraid Sean couldn't make it today, so I'm giving the talk myself, but this is a joint project that I did with Sean Whitten. So the other thing I wanted to say about all this, this is super complicated. I've been swimming in this stuff, well, since we invented dgit in Vaumarcou, and a lot of this is very complicated, so there's going to be a slight oversimplification. So if you know more details that I'm going to show you here, please don't interrupt, and maybe you can deal with that in the questions. So this is a talk about tag2upload, which is a facility to let you upload to Debian simply by making a suitable signed Git tag and pushing it to Salsa. You won't have to do anything else. A robot will take care of the rest. So this will make uploading a package very quick and easy, much quicker and easier than even users of dgit push source have come to love. But it's got significant advantages for the whole project source code integrity. And that's what I'm going to be that's the angle I'm going to be mostly taking today. So before I explain how it works, I need to really explain what's wrong with our source code integrity. And for that, we need to have a history lesson. So back in 1993, when I invented the Debian source package format, this is how things works. The source code is all kept here in the Debian archive. You get it with apt-get source. You keep local copies. You copy them about with cup or maybe rsync or something. Some people used CVS or ancient version control systems like that, but you couldn't share that. You worked that way, and it was really not, it was quite difficult. So mostly you would just use diff, you'd use patch, you'd copy the source code about, you'd edit things in text editors, and when you wanted to upload, you'd go dpackage build package, sign changes, and dput. Now, in 2023, that is still the official doctrine, right? This is officially the source code to Debian. Theoretically, this is the official canonical source code to every package in Debian. Theoretically, the DSCs you find in here are the preferred form for modification. But this is lies, right? Nobody works, well, not nobody. There are still a few people who are still working like this. I don't know why they're doing that, because it's incredibly annoying and just totally clumsy. It's just the modern version control systems have really been revolutionary, especially Git. All this stuff is very clumsy, and whenever I have to work this way, I kind of like, how did I ever live like this? This is just crazy. Well, maybe we were all harder in 1993. So there's no Git in this picture. What's actually going on is this. So we have Salsa. That's where the maintainer typically thinks of as the primary source code to their package. That's where they do their development. That's where they share the work with the team. That's where they integrate the upstream source code. They do all of their work in Git. They use a bunch of Git tools and their text editor to maintain the source code. When we need to upload, as in like actually publish our work, we do something or other. And everybody's got their own like private special thing that you do, and sometimes your special thing will work with somebody else's package, and sometimes it won't. A few times recently I had to upload a Debian Rust package, and I had to deal with debcargo, and I don't think I can code of conduct that in this talk. But even like fairly normal packages, there's some kind of upload runes here, and usually it's just a fairly standard GBP build package rune. But what's still going on here is some program is running on your laptop, which is converting what you think of as the source code into whatever gets uploaded to the archive, which is officially the source code. And, well, this isn't the source code anymore now. This is an intermediate build product. So what we're really treating as primary is these Git repos on Salsa. But because they're not properly official, they're not standardized. So there's all sorts of things you can't do with a repo from Salsa. You can't make a robot that will take every package, find it on Salsa, and build the source code for unstable, because you can't even tell which commit in Salsa necessarily you wanted. You can't find the repo on Salsa, maybe. Maybe the VCS Git header is out of date. Maybe you do find the right commit, and it doesn't have any upstream source code in it because it's one of these bare Debian repos. Or maybe you need to apply the patches, or maybe it's some deb cargo thing. Who knows? Could be any number of things, and was just completely disorganized. So as a result, downstreams, users, all have to, where are I? Yes. So NMUers, QA people, downstreams, all have to use this, because this is the only thing that's standardized. But it's pretty terrible. It doesn't link to the Git history. It's not really the source code. You can, if you're a user, go and use deb checkout or something, but I mean, for non-Debian experts, that's a really bad idea. I had a conversation a year or two ago with a friend of mine who was a very competent, programmer and a reasonably okay sysadmin, and they were trying to do something with some Debian package, and they got the source code this way, and they built it, and then they came to me and they said it's not doing it's doing a strange thing, like the package that I built, that I had before, the binary from Debian, has these, different things, and there's obviously I've lost some things. It turns out that they built the whole package without Debian's patches, because that's what happens if you download the patches unapplied branch from Salsa and run dpkg build package on it. You get the version without patches applied, and often it will build, and then maybe you've got a program that seems to work but lacks the security patches. This is not a theoretical hazard. This actually happens to people, and I dread to think, it must be happening to, if it's happening to my friends who talk to me on IRC, I dread to think how much it must be happening in the world. It's also unfair, right? We all get to do this lovely Git stuff, and all of our downstreams get to have these tarballs and patches nonsense from 1993. And I mean, it was good stuff in 1993, but we can do this better now. So I think this is not good enough, and tag2upload is the next step in my scheme to try and fix this. So here's the tag2upload workflow. The maintainer still gets to do basically all the same things they did before. You get to use gbp-bq, git dpm, whatever your strange workflow is. Most of the Git workflows that people are actually using are supported. Certainly the very dominant ones, the gbp-bq one is very well supported. So you can work with Salsa, you do all the things in the usual way. When you're ready to release, you run this little utility. It's not on the picture here. You run this little utility called git debpush. And all that does is make a signed Git tag, and it puts a little dropping in the tag saying, hello, upload robot, please upload this thing. That Git tag goes all the way through Salsa. There's a webhook that goes the tag2upload service receives. It fetches the tag, it reads it, it checks the signature, it says, right, here's some work for me to do. And then it creates a standardized representation of the package automatically based on the information you've given. It generates reproducibly the DSC and the changes, which are basically the same thing that your Git build package rune would have produced, only now it's traceable and reliable. And it also automatically pushes the same information to the canonical Git server, which is guaranteed now to be identical to the DSC. So it's got identical contents. Users who like the tarballs or have, already using them, that's all fine, that still works. Users who want the Git version can have Git, and it's linked through to the maintainer Git history. So, Git annotate works, Git log works. Maintainers whose workflow isn't supported or who don't want to use Git or something, that's all still fine. I'm not, abolishing that. That's just not on this picture because it makes the picture far too complicated. This is just the new workflow picture. Status. So this is all great. This software is more or less written. Sean basically came up with the idea in some hand-waving conversation that he and I had. The canonical Git server already exists. It's used by dgit, and we're going to be reusing it for this. The tag creation utility exists. It's tested. The conversion from Git to source packages works and is reliable and is tested. I thought this is quite a new thing. So we'll get onto the security review. Yes, let me get onto that in a moment. But I got an independent security review because this thing is now making source packages, and that's kind of critically important. And Noodles and Russ Albury were very helpful there. And now I'll get on approval in principle in a moment. Now I'm just going to do the demo. Just a moment. I need to make my PGP key available, and I can do that here where you can't see it. Oh, come on. Right. Okay, so here I have my... this is the dgit test dummy package. I'm not going to do a real upload of package anybody cares about because I don't have a patch prepared that I want to upload right now. So here I've got my dgit test dummy thing, and I'm just going to add a new stanza to the changelog. Well, let's call it demo upload. And I'm a Git user, so I'm just going to stage that change. And then I can go deb commit, and then I can go git deb push. And for reasons, I need to tell it which key I'm using. And that generates a tag, and you see it's generated this tag. I'll show you the tag. It's very boring. It's like, here's a tag. It's got the Debian version number in it in the dep14 format. It says this is a thing to be uploaded to Debian. Please upload it. Now, sadly, the robot is not yet deployed. So I'm going to have to pretend to be the robot here. So here's my other window where I run this incredible rune. Now, of course, nobody's going to have to run this rune. Because that's going to be done in some robot somewhere. But for now, I'm just going to run this locally. And it takes a little while to do this because it's chuntering away. It has to consult the FTP master API to check the upload makes some kind of sense. It has to fetch the tag from Salsa. Salsa's not particularly fast. It then has to convert the Git to a source package and upload it and do all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't really produce any output either because it's a robot. Why would it produce any output? It would have emailed me if something went wrong. Now, the archive is a bit slow, so that package that I've just uploaded that, so that's there in the archive now. But of course, it's sitting in some upload queue. But I can show you that it is already on the canonical Git server. Well, that's a lot of stuff. There we go, demo upload. So I just fetched that back from the Git server. So the only part of this that the maintainer is going to have to do when this is deployed, you won't have to run this thing, it'll just happen, and then you'll get the usual series of cron emails from the as things clank through the pipelines. Okay, so let me just deactivate my PGP key. Right, status. So, like I said, it's had some security review, but there's still a bit of outstanding work. We want to improve the privilege separation, but one of the things we're currently waiting for is due to the following situation. So if I go back to this, there's the demo. Go back to this slide, you will see that the DSC here and the changes file have to be signed by the tag2upload service. The maintainer can't sign those because the DSC is only generated in the tag2upload service, and we need the maintainer's machine not to be having any of this tarballs and patches nonsense, and their thing probably isn't reproducible and they can't run a copy of this code. So that means that the tag2upload service has to have the right to upload to the Debian archive, and that is a very powerful capability, and therefore, A, we need a security review, and B, we need approval for that upload key to be there. Now, the archive doesn't have to completely trust the tag2upload service, because the tag2upload service can send a copy of the signed Git tag along with it. So the archive can verify, if it wants to, that this maintainer, and it can see who that was, intended to upload a certain source package with a certain version to a certain target distro, a target suite, but it can't verify that the contents of the source package are correct, because that's a very complicated transformation. Indeed, reliably converting the actual, I mean, that's why Git build package is so complicated, right? Reliably converting the maintainer Git thing to the source package is actually a complicated business, and that's one of the reasons why we say privsep improvements. So there's already some privsep there. I think it was Noodles who said, it would be better if this part of the activity were further separated, so that, in particular, the source package conversion wouldn't be able to do bad things with the key other than generate a broken source package that was not somehow a representation. And we know how to design that. I just haven't done the implementation work yet. When we've got that approval, the next thing to do would be to talk to DSA about hosting arrangements for this thing. A webhook receiver is not an entirely trivial thing to run, and we probably need some kind of job scheduler, which I haven't written yet. It won't be, the first cut of that won't be very sophisticated and ought to be very stupid, really. But I'm hoping that maybe we can have this sometime, maybe next year. It will make, obviously this will make the maintainer's life an enormous amount easier, but I think one of the, my motivation with a lot of my Git in Debian work has been this situation here, because people outside Debian don't work like this anymore, and when you explain to them that, oh yeah, Debian is this super thing and we have the source code to everything and it's all completely traceable and trackable and buildable and we've got the dependencies all sorted and everything is great, and then they're like, but I have to do what? What do you mean it's not in Git? And yes, so I want to get our users up here where everybody else in the software world is nowadays. So I think I'm probably onto the section of questions now. There's a lot of stuff not on this diagram, so please do ask away. Someone, I don't know. We had Simon at the back as well.
So, yeah, this sounds awesome. Looking at, as I've mentioned in the last talk, I work on a derived distro where we are just about at the point where a signed Git tag will cause packages to happen and uploads to happen and everything automatically. Lots of other people are doing that, but it's very strange that Debian isn't. It's great to give the users. I'll be honest, I'm being selfish. It will be great to make my life easier. Yes, please.
Great. I think Simon was first, but... Okay.
You mentioned one of the advantages of this as being that people won't accidentally build Debian packages without the patches as applied because they don't know that Debian has those. Presumably that means that what's in the Git over the top right will be patches applied trees.
Indeed. One of the things that happens here is this, if the input is patches unapplied, or even bare Debian or something, it will apply the patches, or if it's bare Debian, the signed tag says what the corresponding orig tree is supposed to be, and it will produce a patches applied version of the same Git history, and that derived Git tree is made a descendant in Git terms. So if you look at the Git log here, you'll see commits for the individual patches. That's the way that dget uploads work already. This gives you two signed tags, actually. It gives you the maintainer tag, makes it all the way through, and you can see it here. But there's also a second tag, archive/Debian/whatever, that refers to the standardized, directly buildable patches applied tree, which you can use without needing to know anything about maintainer Git workflows.
Would it make sense to encourage people to actually use patches applied trees and whatever tools already exist for that, GBP, PQ, or whatever it is? That's the ones I've seen have generally been patches on applied trees.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of trees on Salsa are GBP PQ patches unapplied. And the patches unapplied tree is, I mean, it's the difficulty of working as a Debian maintainer in Git. It's not entirely trivial if you want to maintain that Delta as a broken out series. I've got some other tool that's not this talk. There's a Git debris based tool which I wrote, which is like some kind of crazy advanced alien technology with incomprehensible diagrams in the man page, which is an alternative to this. And I mean, the Zen people, the Zen team are using it, the Debian Zen team, but I'm not sure that I would want to sell it to everybody. I think the GBP PQ approach is a good compromise given the available tooling, but it does present this hazard to users. So we should keep that as the Debian version, and we should provide users with an automatically, reliably generated version of the, that they can directly build. This will come back in a moment, I'm sure. Simon.
Yes, so at the moment I use dget to upload, but essentially none of my co-maintainers do. And because GBP PQ is supported, they don't even need to know that I'm using dget, and it interoperates. Is the same true for tag2upload?
Yes, but I think you'll probably find your maintainers will want to adopt it.
We'll see.
They may think it's too magical. Certainly, when the original, when it is first deployed as a beta service, it's going to be pretty flaky because one of the things that happens in this robot is a lot of checks. You have to check a lot of things that preventing broken uploads of one kind or another, and the way that's going to work is you push your tag and then you get some email saying with some essay of an error message in it, and we'll have to work on the ergonomics of that. The git deb push utility does check for some of the more obvious failure modes, but we'll need to suit that up when we get user experience.
Hey.
I think plug. Yeah. Oh yeah, no. Okay.
So in the beginning, you were mentioning how we have different ways of storing the source of the package on Git today. So you mentioned debcargo, for example. I presume tag2upload will have to support these different formats, or instead are you going to enforce that we have to store the package in a certain way in Salsa?
Indeed, tag2upload will support most workflows because most people will be able to adopt this without changing their workflow. debcargo, debcargo is in the first slide there. Debcargo is not in this picture. The debcargo workflow is too bad to be, even if I wanted to implement it, I think it would be impossible. So, like I say, DSC-style patch uploads are still going to be supported. I'm not taking those away. I'm hoping that I can provide a thing that almost everybody will want to use instead.
Gotcha. So you would be open to eventually extending support under tag2upload if it makes sense?
Absolutely. There's even a couple of wish list bug reports of that kind. There's a thing called Git debcherry that you've probably never heard of that looks like it would be relatively straightforward to support, but I just haven't, I haven't got around to, and none of the maintainers who use Git debcherry have.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
I think Plugwash was first. No? Yeah, okay. No, Helmut was first. Whoever was first.
Okay. So you said that a user shouldn't need to generate a source package and that the signature of that source package cannot be stored in the tag. And I feel like it's less obvious why that is the case than it initially seems, because I seem to remember that the package source now is reproducible if you give it a source date epoch.
Yes, the reason that... So you cannot generate the DSC unless you have the arig tarball and a lot of information about how that needs to be converted. This is what, basically, that's how dgit push source works. Dgit push source is precisely the thing that does the Git conversion on your laptop, and it involves having the arigs on your laptop so you can't work without them. The arig management is actually quite annoying, and it's extremely slow because it needs to constantly unpack and repack all these tarballs. It needs to apply patches. It needs to do things that in ways that are bit for bit compatible with the way that dpkg source does them. There's grep the dgit source code for absurd git apply, and you'll be horrified, right, of what's going on in there. And real packages use that. I dgit cloned the libc recently, and it was I'm going to absurd git apply mode, and I'm like, ooh. And it takes ages. It's just not, the maintainer really, ideally, I don't think we want the new workflow. The tarballs and patches and stuff here that are on the maintainer system, they're only there in order to produce the intermediate build product in the archive. They're not there because they're actually part of the source code. They're just they're a kind of thing that's required for our source code management practices. And I want to make, if we're to make this convenient and nice for the user, then we need the maintainer not to have that stuff going on their computer anymore. Yes, Plugwash.
You talk about the hazard to users of accidentally ending up with a patches unapplied tree.
Yes.
One thing that comes to, and you're also talking about pushing the maintainer's original Git tag all the way through.
Yes.
Having pointed to a web browser, I presume git.d.d.o is git.d, git.debian.org.
Yes.
Having pointed a web browser at that, I just get a totally generic VVC interface that gives me no information whatsoever. We really need to make it clear, I think, on the web interface to this canonical Git repository, what is the patches applied process tag that represents what's in Debian, and what is the unprocessed maintainer tag that may or may not be patches applied. We need to make it clear which...
You make a very good point. I think... okay, so that's just a cgit. I don't know how that could be improved. I think this might be a DSA ticket, but why don't you file a bug against the dgit package, and that'll put it on Sean and my to-do list.
Okay.
But I think we'll probably have to right. I mean, probably there should be some text that lives in the dgit team's purview that is deployed by DSA to that cgit instance. I guess you're imagining, like, you go to the repo and there's a heading explanation at the top of each package, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly how it would work out, but, you know, you go to Salsa, you see this modern GitLab. You go to git.org, you see a website that looks like it came out of the 90s that gives you, yes, it gives you a view of the repo, but it doesn't give you any of the information you need to understand what that repo means in any kind of context.
I think there are other things that could be improved for particularly the web browser view of that. So you're completely right.
So
please file a bug about that. I think this can be addressed basically by UI improvements there.
Yeah. But UI is important if the goal of this is to stop screw-ups.
Absolutely. That's why I'm saying please file a bug. Please file a bug means I want to fix this, but I'm giving a talk now, so I can't put things on my to-do list.
So I appreciate that you said that you're aiming for a sort of a beta of tag2upload sometime next year.
That would be nice.
So here's the next thing that you're probably going to tell me to file a bug. If the process that the tag2upload robot has to go through is so complex and is likely to result in essay email sent back to maintainer who thought that they'd done the right thing and pushed the button and then went to lie on a beach and drink mojitos, would it be a useful thing to aim for some kind of robot that can be tagged into merge requests to try to get that information earlier to the maintainer of, by the way, the moment you try to push the button, it's not going to work because?
That's an interesting possibility. I think most of the pieces for that exist. I don't much enjoy wrestling Salsa CI, so it
could just be a robot.
I think it would. The place that ought to be is it ought to live in Salsa CI, and it ought to be that the Salsa CI would. I think it would probably suffice to run dgit build source on the branch or something like that. It would probably be possible to detect most of the problems. There are other things that can only be detected kind of online, right? If the version number in the archive is higher than the version number in your branch, then the upload is going to fail. And git deb push doesn't talk to the FTP master API, so it can't tell that. And it will just faithfully make the tag and say, please upload this. And then you'll get a snotogram later saying, but this version number is too old. There will be, I think, probably there are not going to be that many things you will do to the source code in a normal Git branch that will cause this kind of problem. Because there are going to be problems to do with package metadata or source package construction. The package metadata won't be detected until the archive sees it, or dgit push source sees it, or something like that. Whereas source package construction mistakes are unlikely to happen unless you could botch importing a newer rig, I guess. An obvious one is if you're working with patches unapplied in GitLab, you can totally make branches where the patches just don't apply. And I think probably your CI will spot that already. I hope your CI will spot that already, because how's it working if it can't build a source?
Right, but if I was preparing for my final sort of release branch, as it were, having something like dgit push source dry run or something available as an automatic thing that can happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I think probably what we need to do is give a sort of functional version of this to brave early adopters, and then see what the rough edges are and decide how to, because when I was, dgit is a lot more mature now than it was when I first invented it. And for at least the first few years, I was constantly getting bug reports from people where I would look at the thing and like my software has exploded in 3 different directions, but also what caused you to try and run that rune, because that doesn't seem like as a good rune. Can you point me also into the documentation and what it was were you trying to do anyway? And since then, the command line options and the documentation and the error reporting have become massively better, and now people, I only get one of those bug reports every, a few times a year rather than a few times a month.
So, Lou, so a kind of naive question, because I represent the weirdos who are still doing it the old-fashioned way. As you know, I have tried Git debris base, but I didn't find it enough better and kind of went back to doing things the simple-minded way. So the one thing you get from that is it's very obvious what the difference between the original source and the set of changes you made is, right? So in this,
you mean you're using GBPPQ or you're using...
No, I make a tarball, and then I use uscan, and it updates it to the new thing, and then I argue with Quilt for a while, and then I upload the package. Right?
I'm just but it
doesn't really matter. That's not the point.
Yeah, okay.
The point is that, the thing was there's the Debian patches diff, right? So it's very obvious what the diff is that you did to what you were given originally, to the upstream package.
If you were working with the GBP PQ style Git
Hold on a minute, I haven't asked any question yet. Can I... So
okay.
my question is, in this new Git world, do we still get, the upstream release and the set of changes I made? Is that still reasonably obvious, or do I just get a tree, which is the source, and it's not very obvious?
Whatever your Git workflow is.
Right.
So the answer is it depends on what you choose to do, but most people are using the GBP PQ patches on applied branch format,
right?
Which, yes, does have that Debian patches directory with all the patches in it,
which you can use as
which
instead,
you can use with this, or you could just, like most people, are using that without this, because this doesn't exist yet. Some people are using it with dgit push source, which most people who've tried it seem to like, and probably that will be a better starting point than wrestling git build package yourself now.
Okay, well, I'll give it a go again and see if I...
You probably, Git debris base is advanced alien technology for the heart of,
Yeah, it's quite funky.
Very funky.
I mean, I like the concept. That seems like what I kind of wanted to do if I was going to switch to all this Git magic, but it was quite hard to use.
So the usability thing, I know you mentioned about the robot not giving much output. Especially for early users, I think it would be awesome to have a log coming back via email showing what it did. Even if that is essentially the same as what dgit push source would have done with a few knobs on, that might have a really good...
That is a good idea. Currently, it only emails you the transcript if it went wrong, but you're completely right. And indeed, it's Debian practice to, whenever you do anything to Debian, you get a slew of these incomprehensible automatic emails. So why not add one more? They're reassuring, right?
Yeah, exactly. More email is good or something.
We've got, I think, time for one more question over here.
Is there any logic in there that makes sure that the Git tag doesn't end up in the canonical Git if the upload doesn't work for whatever reason?
Yes. So this process here builds the source package and does all of its checks, and only when it's completely, satisfied does it do the git push and the dput.
Yeah, and if the dput fails, does it not push the tag to
No, it does. That's an interesting question. This is the database consistency problem. We have these two unsynchronized databases. And the answer is this takes the same design decision as dgit push source does, which is that the tags get pushed first and then the dput happens. And there's a number of reasons for that, and I could go into that in detail, but probably this 1 minute is not too long enough to discuss it. You can get your package into anomalous states. You can do that already with dgit push source. It's not desirable, but those states cannot be completely eliminated given this architecture.
Can't you just wait for the upload to be confirmed and then push?
But then the DSC might be here and not there. And then this would have
get there 10 minutes later?
I consider that worse, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that afterwards. Okay?
So you have two canonical locations.
Yes.
On top of the canonical location on Salsa, which is where the maintainer expects patches, and the canonical location on the upstream Git repo, which is where upstream expects patches.
Yes, isn't free software marvelous?
Yes. So my question is, if the user consumes the Git Debian or canonical version, what's the workflow for them to send patches to the Debian developer and upstream?
Right. So the obvious thing to do, the user can do two things. One is they can make patches and do git format patch to the Debian BTS. That's not great, but it does work. In the future, it might be possible for them to make a Salsa MR. This process is sufficiently traceable and leaves enough metadata to reverse the transformation. So it would in principle be possible for the user's MR branch to be automatically back converted into whatever the maintainer's workflow is, but there is currently no software that can do that.
So the idea is that the user would patch a patch applied repo, and tag2upload has enough stuff to untangle that patch and turn it into a patch and
tag2upload
apply.
has left enough information so that some other thing somewhere would be able to untangle that and turn it into an addition to Debian /patches or whatever it is that's needed. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.